butter toffee peanuts. Hello everybody and welcome back to another CS Lightwork video. Today we're going to be going over everything that you can do to maximize your opportunity at getting a return offer. Now this applies to full-time and that's the goal of this video, but at the end of the day this is applicable to getting a return internship or just performing the best you can as an intern, right? A lot of times even if we can't get the return offer, always having that connection as a good worker is important, but that's for a separate video. Now, this video is not just going to be sort of a checklist or a couple of things. This is going to be everything I could think to conjure up in order to maximize your chance at a return offer, because this is sort of a second piece to my internship video where there's so many different little things that you can do, and while one thing might not be the reason, the other might. So we want to make sure that we do absolutely everything we can to make sure that if we don't get that offer, it has nothing to do with us, that at the end we can't say, oh, I should have done this, this, and this, oh, I missed doing this, oh, I lacked here. Because at the end of the day, right, it's in God's hands and it could be up to head count, budget, and everything like that, but you need to make sure the liability is not on you. A couple of things I want to preface before this video. Again, this isn't just like a do this, do that, do this, do that, this works, this doesn't work. It's gonna be everything I could think to come up with because we don't know what might contribute. And at the end of the day, you're also pitching for your batter, right? Things I might mention might be more applicable to your situation and less applicable to your situation. So your manager specific, right? Your team specific, everything like that. But this is everything that you could incorporate in your environment. And lastly, one thing I do want to say, I don't touch too much on this in the video, because this is more so on how to secure that return offer outside of just the technical ability, but technical performance is implied. Now, don't worry, I'll talk about that as well. But at the end of the day, it's implicative that we're performing the best we can technically, but that's not what secures the return offer alone a lot of the times, right? Because we all know that there's so many code monkeys and coding now is becoming more of a formality. Communication is always one of the more value traits of a developer on top of everything else. If you can't communicate, explain, even knowledge transfer the solutions you're coming up with, you can be a liability, right? So all of this is going to be a combination of everything, hoping that we can get ourselves a return offer. But without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so I'm going to be going over everything sectionally. I would suggest going through everything, but I'll put them up here just in case. The first thing we're going to talk about is our output, us on the floor, starting with our onboarding, right, at day one. Now, a key point that I want to maintain is when I say get up to anything fast, it is still implying the maintenance of the quality, right? You're still delivering as high quality work as you can. It's just getting to that end goal faster, right? So when it comes to onboarding, get up to speed quick. What does that mean? Get through all the tech learnings you need to do, the modules you need to do, the documentation you need to go through, digging into the code base, absorb it all as early on as you can, right? Don't waste time. You want to get to working as soon as you can. Another thing is those first couple of weeks is your free pass. Ask every question that you can think to ask, even the basic ones, right? Because no one's going to remember those questions you might have asked in the first couple of weeks. And so you want to bang those all out at the beginning, right? Write everything down so you never end up repeating a question either. And that's something that applies to everything. Any problems that you run into, you can run into the problems, just try not to run into the same thing again, right? Learning from your mistakes, learning from your difficulties, right? Another thing, and this is really, really important, is you want to set expectations from day one. A lot of times people neglect to talk to their manager till it's too late about full-time, about feedback, anything like that. Talk early on, speak with your manager and say, hey, what does an excellent intern look like to you? Hey, I'm looking for full-time. What are the milestones I need to achieve, right? Set those with your manager. The cheat code here is if you both set the bar and you clear the bar, there's not much room to argue, right? You hit exactly what was defined for you, right? So take advantage of that early on and continuously get that feedback. And we'll get more into that later. Another thing is general output speed too, right? I mentioned that about onboarding, but as much as not going to be said out loud, especially to an intern, right? Shipping speed separates. Now, again, you are still maintaining quality, right? Produce, move, and iterate. Not reckless, but fast. Through this, you can get the trust of your manager, the trust of your teams, and you become reliable, right? Because reliability is at the end of the day, what you're trying to become, what you're trying to achieve, and what managers can advocate for, right? You want to be someone on the team that isn't a burden, that isn't an intern they have to think about and worry about, but someone who helps out, right? And this goes beyond just the manager, but it's everyone in your team, right? Everyone you're working with. You want to become independent, be trustworthy, and be proactive in everything you do. Proactive with the team's work, unblocking yourself, anticipating the next issue in the question, and sort of reduce the load on everyone around you if you can, as well as on your own tasks, right? It's at the end of the day, it's the interns who can be autonomous, who reduce stress that can become permanent, right? That's what reliability on a team level actually is. Another important factor here is ownership, right? You want to take ownership for the full mission, for the whole thing, not just your individual task necessarily, right? So You could finish the code for your work, but what you want to do, you want to clarify those vague requirements, right? Define them if you need to. Identifying all the edge cases that might have been thought of, might not have been thought of, right? Testing thoroughly and handling everything, rolling it out, documenting, and following through everything until it's closed, right? From A to Z, going through all of the steps, right? At the end of the day, a manager will love an intern who they didn't have to babysit, right? Or a supervisor will love the intern, the senior dev will love the intern that they didn't have to babysit, but that actually gets things done on their own. That's the one they want to return, right? And the thing that goes along with that also is make your work easy to review, right? And especially in computer science, in coding, there's a lot of technical aspects that play into this, right? So don't have massive PRs with no context, messy commits, everything like that. That alone can silently kill your reputation, right? Even though you might be finishing the code fast, the process of rolling it out could take so long, right? Instead, small PRs, good code practices, both that which is defined company specific, right? Because everywhere has their own rules, but just general good practice as well, right? And this plays into your output speed, right? Anticipate the reviewer's questions, maybe any issues that they might have early on, right? And getting from there is another thing. Mistakes. You are going to make mistakes, okay? It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. But how do you handle them? Do you communicate it immediately? Do you fix it and make sure it never repeats itself, right? And that's where writing things down and keeping that in memory plays a role, right? How you handle a mistake is often more memorable than the mistake itself, right? That's the key part, right? Because people make mistakes. How do you handle them and move forward, right? And the final thing I want to mention on the floor is go find the work and pitch in it when it matters, right? So don't just stay exclusive to the small task you might have been assigned, right? While you're done, don't sit. Ask, is there anything else you can pick up? Look into it yourself, right? Maybe scan the area you're already working in, the ticket system area you're already working in, find the bugs maybe that weren't assigned or inefficiencies that weren't caught, right? And again, this is, of course, assuming you have your work assigned handled with. With the new things, right? Fix them or come with fixes already proposed and planned when you're bringing them up, right? Don't just flag it, solve it, right? Another thing is maybe bugs and crashes can arise within the team. Whenever you can, you want to jump in on that, right? Any issues, any blocks, you come into, even time box yourself. Spend the time, get the context, understand it, and then try to solve it, right? A blocking bug is more important than whatever you might be working on as well, right? So keep those in mind. Another thing is if the team is sharing something like that, the team is sharing issues, they're not just informing you, right? There could be a possibility for you to work, right? So find the room where you can fit to actually help the team. And again, this is on top of whatever you're already doing, right? Don't just say things to say things, actually have meaning and value behind it, right? There's a level where you can pick up assignments, new assignments fast. And then there's a level above that where you're finding and solving problems that might have not been on the radar or that might have not even been found yet, right? And that's a separating factor. All right, so the next section of the video that I want to talk about is going to be how you move, right? So that's your communication and your process. Now, one thing I want to preface about this is that different workplaces and environments have a different sort of level and balance between this, right? Like a lot of workplaces have so many channels and boards and opportunities and announcement places to put out the work that you're doing, and some may value the hard work a bit more, right? So it's up to you to pitch for your batter there and sort of understand the balance, or moreover, the methods of delivering what I'm about to say, right? Because what I'm about to say is still applicable in every workplace, but at levels. Now, that being said, what I'm going to start out with is saying the work speaks for itself, and when it does, let it, but that's when you need to open your mouth, right? So the foundation is this. You need to do the work so well that you almost don't need to say anything. But that's when you actually can speak out about the work, right? Closed mouths don't get fed, but an empty mouth or a loud mouth with no receipts behind it will get you nowhere and can hurt you, right? The order matters. Get your results in first and then speak. When your work is undeniable, every time that you do open your mouth and articulate it, it lands harder. Now, everything about the section going forward is about not having empty comms, right? Speak on what's worth speaking about, and when you do, make sure the work is there to back it up and you're there to back it up, right? Talk about what you're up to, but make sure what you're up to is also well done, right? Now, what I want to segue into is asking for help, right? You're going to have to ask for help throughout your internship, so how do you do it, right? Do it the right way. Before you ask anything, you want to make sure you did everything you can to solve that issue within a reasonable period, right? So before you ask anything, you better have tried, right? Go through the documentation, go through similar codes, similar issues, look at your internal wikis, go through your Slack for anything similar. Of course, time box yourself, right? You shouldn't be headbanging on something for too long, because again, if someone else has the ability to help you, go get that help, right? Again, that goes into speed and sort of not being blocked for longer than you need to be, right? But when you do ask, you need to make sure you go, okay, here's the problem, but here's what I've tried. Here's everything I've looked at. So what can I do from there, right? That framing alone puts you above the typical, oh, I ran into a roadblock, I went straight to my mentor without trying anything, right? That's a very common thing. I've done it myself, and you don't want to fall into that sort of trap, right? A cheat code also that I want to mention here is if the issue isn't directly involved with your mentor or your manager, your supervisor's domain, go to whoever it actually concerns and whoever might actually be able to help, and then get the help done. Loop in your mentor if you need to, but otherwise you don't even need to call them for anything. And this is really important because your assignees are going to be your mentors, your supervisor, your team, right? But say you run into an issue, you're able to unblock it yourself, get that help from that senior level that you need, and your team doesn't even know, wow, this guy, this girl, they solved the problem without having to even come to us for help, and there was some complexities. Or if they find out you did go for help, wow, they reached out to the correct team without bothering us, right? That's that autonomy, that independent trustworthiness that you have, right? They can trust you to get it done or go to the right person who assistance is needed from, right? Your mentor, your supervisor, they're all feeding into your performance evaluation, and you can separate yourself from that, oh, this intern kept pinging me when he didn't need to, he could have figured it out himself, or this isn't my domain, right? Of course, everyone's happy to help, but that being able to accomplish it yourself and them being able to trust you with that is key, right? And now we're gonna get into back what we were talking about making noise, right? So make noise, don't yap, right? Pre-fire the answers, update people before they have to ask. Let them know I finished X, noticed Y, and moved Z, right? Don't have to have anyone bug you for any answers or any updates, right? Another thing in your communication and your presence is specifically in computer science, right? Code reviews. Try to participate, don't just get reviewed, right? Everyone's code, but especially interns, get reviewed, right? But the top interns are the ones who can contribute to code reviews, obviously foresee the issues, but also contribute to other people's reviews, right? Peers, sometimes even senior when it's appropriate, right? A lot of times you'll find an intern has worked in a section so much that they're the ones that are being sought out for review, right? That feels above your level, but that's exactly why it stands out, right? So become an expert in the area you're working on, and feel free to give reviews and give insight and learn from other people's PRs, right? Another thing I want to mention is making sure you stand on business, but don't become a genius jerk, right? So what does that mean, right? When you've done the research and you know you're right, hold your position strong, right? Push back if you need to, and don't be wishy-washy about your decisions, right? Stand on business, but at the same time, a good manager of mine once told me, no one likes a genius jerk. What does this mean? Even if you're right, there is a correct way to deliver things like that, especially as an intern, right? You can be right and stand on it and still bring people with you, right? Confidence and kindness are not mutually exclusive. The way you hold sort of the ground matters as much as you actually holding it, right? You should never make people feel beneath you or disrespected for disagreeing with you, right? This is an opportunity. A lot of times, all the time, you're going to get a review on your code, feedback on your solutions, and sometimes you'll have the opportunity where maybe you'll be pressured. Maybe you'll be pressured on your solution, why you did this, maybe even thought to be wrong, but you might be right? You might have strong reason and be correct in the situation. How do you handle that? Do you just go on a tangent and be like, no, I think this is right? No, explain yourself, explain what you think about their proposed solution. Hey, I see that, but the reason I didn't do this is because XYZ, right? The best engineers are sure of their work, but are very easy to work with still, regardless, right? And that plays into communication as well. And the final thing I want to mention in this section is do the extra, okay? This falls a bit out of, I don't want to say ethicality, but a lot of times you'll have opportunities where maybe you could say no, or maybe you would think to, maybe not, but you could go the extra mile. Maybe take that, right? We're talking about maximizing all of our chances. Take that. Maybe someone messages you after hours within reason. Do it. I know, of course, think sustainability, but also if it's doable, get it done, right? Shadowing on-call people, helping teammates outside of your scope even, or people outside of your team, outside of your scope. These are moments that managers can remember like almost disproportionately, right? Putting in that extra even when maybe it might not be the sort of typical idea of an intern to do. All right, bear with me. The last few sections are much smaller. Now, the next section I want to get into is tracking everything and leave it cleaner, right? So I hinted at this before, but it's really important to log the work that you're doing, right? Daily is ideal, but weekly is more realistic, right? Don't let it fully slip, especially when you're locked in. A lot of times you start the internship, say, oh, you're going to write everything down that you did, but you let it slip as it gets busier and busier. This isn't just for your resume, right? This is mainly so you can answer, why should we keep you? keep a log of everything you do, right? The things you do, the impact, even if it's small notes on a daily scale, it starts to add up, right? These are your receipts, almost like a brag doc, some people will call it, where you have a history of what you've actually completed, framing everything. Built X, which did Y for the team, for the product, for the users, right? What you did, how you did it, and the impact it left. That is the most important thing, right? Going into any performance conversation, final review with this locked, lead with your impact, not just what you did, right? Because you can do a lot of things, but what is actually valued, what actually left an impact, right? And on top of this, document your learnings as well, right? This is more of like a quieter cheat code where it's like your onboarding notes, any setup guide fixes you might have, wiki improvements even to the internal documentation, right? Common areas you ran into and solutions, right? Write all this stuff down, leave it somewhere useful, right? Interns who can leave a place cleaner than they found it scream long-term employee energy, right? And this is applicable not just to documentation, of course, but to code solutions as well, right? Even when you're writing code, can you refactor while you're in there saying, hey, there's room for this to be improved. Should I get to it, right? Leaving an impact and leaving things cleaner than you found them, right? Managers love this, and most interns are not thinking to do this, right? All right, the second last section I want to get into is your reputation. Now, you're not always in the room, but your name will travel through engineers, teams, managers that you've never spoken to, especially in the conversation of keeping you full time, right? And there are things that you do intentionally that we've spoken about and unintentionally that contribute to this, right? But your goal is to be that when you're described, it's as reliable, trustworthy, and someone who gets stuff done, right? And communicates themselves well throughout the process. The receipts will come first, then the reputation follows naturally, right? You don't manufacture it, you earn it, and it spreads on its own, right? In intern debrief meetings, people can be asked, your supervisor, whoever you worked with, would you want to work with this person again? What have you done? How have you communicated? And the more people know you, the more people like you, the more it will come to, yes, I want to work with this person. Yes, this person is reliable. Yes, this person is so, and so, right? And that's where communication comes in. Even if your work is solid, it needs to be known, right? And this is where things outside of work communication also sort of comes in, right? Socialize, have your coffee chats, have your one-on-one outside with just your organized managers, your organized supervisor, right? With your immediate team outside, right? Other interns, build real relationship, not just performative ones, right? And this is where your interest should also play, right? Your passion, right? Speak to people for the sake of speaking with people, right? And a derived positive of that is also, especially in regards to full-time, even if maybe there's no room on your team, people know you, and when they're looking for someone to fill a spot full-time, you can be that person, right? And I really want to stress this, as much as you're in this loop of looking for a full-time job and everything like that, keep your sincerity. The person you are is the only thing that makes you unique, right? Enthusiasm, passion, it's not cringe, right? Being genuine in the workplace and in your team is what makes people know who you are and what should be what you want to be batted for you, right? All right, the last but most important step in terms of everything is the ask, right? You need to make it clear what you want. As much as I said the work speaks for itself and you're outgoing about everything, you need to make it clear that you want full-time, you want that return offer, right? And I hinted at this earlier to get feedback and implement that feedback, but it's really important to have that conversation early. Not the last week, not the last couple of weeks, as early as you can. Make it clear. I really want to come back. What does it take for me to qualify to return? Be direct, get that defined, and answer it, okay? And along the journey, you need to be constantly getting feedback and implementing that feedback. Talk to your manager, say, what can I do better? Whatever you get responded with, you better be doing that and coming back the next week, having that done. What can I improve on? What can I improve on, right? A lot of times you find that the last few weeks, you shift and that's when you lock in. You need to be locked in the whole time, right? The last 3 or 4 weeks, especially though, you want to stop acting like an intern. You want to have already got that higher autonomy, already proposing any ideas you might have, helping fix tech debt, being someone they can rely on, right? Proactively improving what you can within your scope and wherever you can outside of your scope, right? You need to prove that you can already function like a junior engineer before they even have to consider will he, she, they be able to complete at a full-time capacity, right? You need to prove that you are no doubt worth taking the bet on, right? So I think my closing notes for you guys is definitely going to be there's a temporary window where effort has an insane return opportunity, right? It's not forever, it's a few months, and that's your internship. Don't burn out, but understand what this window is worth. If you do all of this and don't get it, that's okay, right? Sometimes it's headcount, sometimes it's budget, sometimes it's things that's outside of your factor. That's real. That doesn't mean you failed. You failed when you didn't put in every single effort you could to complete the goal. You failed yourself only when you didn't try, right? The habits you build will carry into every role. So even if you don't get this offer, everything you contributed towards, every effort that you put in, all the learning that you did, it will play into the next. So never ever take it to heart and always keep moving. But this way you can make sure that you did everything you can in your power to get that return offer. That's all I gotta say, I think. Yeah.